All right, guys, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about the catch-up mechanism, right? So if you look at the thumbnail, kind of clickbaity, but actually true, right? In every game where there is a range of older and newer players, right? For a spending game like this, players that spend more, players that spend less, there's going to be a catch-up mechanism. And specifically, we're going to cover armaments today, but we'll actually cover the catch-up mechanism in general. And once you understand this and you start looking at the game, you can actually from the equipment, from the commanders, from the armaments, and whatever else Lilith could throw at you, start figuring out how to actually take advantage of the catch-up mechanism so you could close the gap with players that are much older than you or players that spend a lot more than you. Obviously, players that are spending more or have played longer can also utilize the system, but the whole point of a catch-up is to actually give people that have a disadvantage an opportunity to close the gap. So even though if you're a bigger spender, you can use this, it actually wouldn't be as effective. All right, so let's actually talk about the catch mechanism games. All right, so the way this works is that, for example, if you're spending, your progress over, say, a free-to-play is not going to be linear, right? So like if you spend, for example, $1,000 and someone else spends $100, your account is not going to be 10 times better than that player, right? Or if you're spending 100,000 and the player is spending $1,000, you're not going to have a 100x better account. Right, so the progress isn't linear. The more you spend, how much you get out of this game, as far as like improvement over another account per dollar spent, actually goes down. Okay, so that's called the catch-up mechanism. It's going to be the same for players that have been playing a lot longer versus like accounts that are a lot younger. Right, so I'll give you an example with equipment. Right, there's gray equipment, there's green, then blue, purple, and then legendary. Right, if you actually just look at the amount of stats you get per mat spent, right? The gray will actually give you the highest amount of stats per mat spent. And then as you move up to green, blue, and then all the way up to legendary, it becomes exponentially more expensive from a mats perspective. But then also the amount of stats you get for the amount of mats you're spending goes down dramatically, right? And obviously, for legendary, it's a lot harder to get the blueprints. If you try to dismantle it, you only get half your mats back. Whereas like for the other ones before that, like epic, like purple, blue, green, you get all of that back, and it's really easy to get those blueprints. Okay, those are all things that are put in the game to be a catch-up mechanism. Now, a lot of times people complain about this, right? Whether you're a younger player or older player, you see just the range of players are always complaining about this. But you have to keep in mind, for this game to survive, right, you need a way to maintain this kind of competitive balance. So you can integrate older or younger players into the community with much older players, right? You can have high spenders that are actually playing with free to play. It needs to be there for a competitive balance. Now, I agree, some catch-up mechanisms can be done better than others. Some I feel like Lilith does a pretty good job of. Others, maybe not so much, right? But regardless, if there is no catch-up mechanism in these kind of online games, the game just wouldn't survive. It'll fall apart really quick. All right. The other thing to keep in mind is that for a the purpose for a catch-up mechanism is that it starts throttling the ability for players at the higher end to just max everything, right? Because if you're a very old, like you're an older player or you're a very high spender, and then your account is just maxed out, there's nothing to improve. Well, okay, yeah, you could beat up on people that are weaker than you, right? But part of the appeal of this game, right? It's a city builder war game. Right, you have your own account where you're building your armament set, you're building your equipment set, you're building your commanders. When there's nothing to really work on anymore, it also kind of takes away the fun for higher end players to just keep building, right? And the city building war game. So the catch-up mechanism, right? Basically, as you get further and further up equipment, you want to get all crit awaken 5. It becomes exponentially more expensive and also time consuming to get, right? And once you get it, okay, fine. Now you can work on a second set, which will also take that long, right? So these things are there to actually keep the game alive and to maintain a balance. Okay, so it's important to understand that, and that's going to be in every game. It's not just specific to Rising Kingdoms. Now, let's actually talk about armaments specifically, right? So I will say these are the 5 big changes to armaments. Not necessarily they were like specifically just this when they did a rework in the armaments, right? But I was actually around when they first released the armament system. And back then, whatever armament you got, it was just as is, right? So if you got a special, but with no good stats, that's it, and then you have to determine through the combination of stats, the inscriptions, which one's the best one to just put on, right? So it was very common for people to just get all these rainbow stats where they have a special inscription. And there was actually wasn't too much thinking there. Everyone pull wedge, and you just put the best set you could gather on your commanders, right? A little bit after that, they decided, okay, we're going to add rerolls. So now you get 10 chances, right? That's when the transmutation stones came in. And then now you actually start to, having to decide which ones are worth rolling, which ones aren't rolling, right? And a lot of it is actually the future upside, right? So if you have a good inscription, right, then it would actually be worth it to roll, because right now, maybe the one with a good inscription and crap stats isn't better than another thing with triple stats. But if you start rolling it, you just need to say hit one stat, and all of a sudden it'll probably be better, right? The future upside actually becoming a lot more important, right? A little later on, they decided, okay, we're going to give you guys more than 10 rolls, right? So now if you roll 10, every KVK you get 2 transmutation crystals. So if you use it up, right, potentially you can get 20 more extra rolls per KVK. It's actually very low, and this is a huge bottleneck for people right now. But what it really did was the quality of triple stats that you're willing to take has gone up, right? So if you actually look at some of my armaments, some of the ones that used to be really good back in the day, where it's like a rare with like what's considered low triple stats now, were actually really good during the version 2 era. And then once version 3 came out, and then everyone's stats just went up higher because of the transmutation crystals. Now it's like, what is this newbie doing, right? Like, why does he have a balance on like 3 mid to low mid triple stats? That's because I actually put it on back during the version 2 era, right? Then in version 4, they introduced the pity system, right? The pity system, a lot of people were complaining that they were spending a lot of money and just weren't able to get specials, right? So now, at worst, if you get 9 rares without a special on your 10th rare or 10th rare or special, you're going to get a special, right? And every 150 pulls for an armament type, you're going to guarantee to at least get a rare, right? So maybe I didn't word that really well, right? So every 150, you're guaranteed to get a rare. If you get it, it kind of resets, and the rare counts towards your pity, right? On the 10th 150 or the 10th rare, if you still haven't gotten a special in 10 tries, then that, instead of a rare, you're guaranteed to get a special, right? Now, what that actually incentivize everyone to just pull the same formation, okay? Because you don't want to get like 4 rares on Arch, 3 rares on Wedge, and then one's 4, one's 3 on the Pity. You actually want to stack everything onto one Pity system, so you can get to 10 as quick as possible if you can't get it, right? For me, I have pulled 2 so far. One was literally like 10 away from the 10th pity, so I'll count that as like I actually just got pitied. The other one I actually got lucky. I was a travel, I think I was 3 out of 10 and I pulled it, right? Currently I'm like 7 out of 10. You just kind of assume you're gonna get to 10 and then get the pity until you don't, right? And then the latest version is the conversion stones, right? Conversion stones, now you can actually convert armaments from one formation type to another, okay? And if you see here the changes to the meta, now the new meta is to actually create sets to match your equipment. What I mean by that is if you're running, say for example, 2 calves, 2 Nth, and 1 archer, right? Really what you want to try to build is 2 calf sets, 2 M sets, and 1 archer sets, right? And then as Lilith starts releasing different kinds of formations where different things become in vogue, then you're actually going to convert one of those sets over to another formation type to match what fits best in the moment, right? Now, they already said they're going to release more conversion stones because right now you can only get 10 per KVK, right? And then 1 special inscription counts 10. So the balance is a little bit off, because if you really actually wanted to convert 4 specials, again, not many people have 4 specials, but if you did, it will actually cost you like about $700 or like about 400,000, not about 400,000 gems, right? So that's a little bit too expensive. But they already said they're going to make more conversion stones available. And so the current meta, right, actually is you do want to worry about the future upside when you're focused on putting in transmutation stones. You actually are going to settle for higher stats now. You still want to pull the same formation to take advantage of the pity system, and you actually want to build sets to match your equipment and then you want to start migrating your sets to the formation type that fits best. So you're not crafting a bunch of sets that you're not going to use. You actually just have X amount of sets for X amount of equipment you have. All right, so that's kind of like the armament history all the way up to the current meta, right? So the catch-up mechanism for armaments is very, very different, right? And I already went over the example with equipment, right? Nothing gets replaced with equipment. Things just get more and more expensive, right? Like if you want to crit, if you get unlucky, which like my last one I got unlucky, I needed 4 freaking blueprints, right? For every 25 refine to actually get the crit. And then obviously it costs half the mats, right? So it was actually a Awaken 5 boot I was trying to crit. So if it costs 40 to craft, it'll cost 20 to refine. It actually cost me 80 mats and then 4 blueprints to get my boots to crit, right? So that's the catch mechanism. It became a lot harder to just get that one thing. Armaments is different, okay? It's not so much that the armaments, like the better it is, the harder it is to catch up. A lot of it is RNG. Where armaments actually has to catch up is that armaments could get replaced, right? So with equipment, even though I put a lot into the boots to get a crit, right, that's going to be there, right? Unless Lilith tries something again, which at this point I doubt, where they just scrap the equipment you have and make you craft new equipment, my Awaken 5 boots are just always going to be there, right? There's nothing to work on there anymore. But with armaments, unless you have a special inscription in a slot, at some point, if you play long enough or the game survives long enough, right, if you get a special inscription for that slot, whatever is there is going to get replaced, right? Now, if that happens, all the transmutation crystals, all the transmutation stones you put into there are essentially wasted, right? Maybe you could kick it to your second set, great. If you can't, that was already on your second set and you have something better, then that just kind of sits on the bench or maybe even gets recycled. Probably people are going to just see it sit on the bench because you're just not going to use it anymore, right? Now, if you're a bigger spender, it doesn't make as much sense to just hoard all these conversion stones, transmutation crystals, because you have the ability to actually spend this on something that's kind of like a stopgap until you get to the special inscription, right? But if you're like a free-to-play or just that part you don't spend a lot of money on, you can actually just get it to good enough, right? It won't be as good as someone that's spending a lot on it, but it's actually not hard to just get like a good common inscription and then just even get low triple stats on something, and then you just sit on that while you wait for very, very high quality inscriptions, right? A very high quality double that can only be replaced by a special or just a special inscription. And that's actually a way you catch up, right? So instead of doing the middle part where other people are working on stuff that potentially will get replaced in the future, you could just get it to a good enough spot and then just hoard, right? Which is actually why the title of the thumbnail is the way it is, right? So what is the actual current strategy, right? On the screen here, you see a picture of Plato, a notorious armament hater, right? And for the longest time, his armaments were very subpar. But what he actually did, and obviously he didn't plan this, was he actually strategically made the right move, right? He just hoarded for a long time and had a lot of materials, right? Not only did he have a lot of stuff to recycle, he had a lot of transmutation stones, all this stuff saved up. He skipped the middle part where a lot of other people who spent a lot more was just dumping transmutation stones in to upgrade something that could be replaced in the future. He actually hoarded for a long time, and then when he actually decided to do a big armament stream, he was able to rapidly catch up with a lot of people that spent a lot more armaments because he hoarded, right? And I remember, still remember watching that stream. One, it was great, maybe you could go back and check it out. But also thinking like, this guy actually made the right play without purposely trying to do it, which is kind of crazy, right? So if you look here, again, this is not like to scale, right? Like people argue different stuff, like, the destructive haters will probably put it like a -1 or something, right? But in general, you can see, I would say, there's common. Did I spell common wrong? Maybe I spelled common wrong. But there's common inscriptions, right? And the two best ones, in my opinion, are assertive. So you get 2% more damage on the map. Like the worst one would be something like bluster, right? Where it's like you have a small chance to resist the silence or something, and then like you might do like a very small amount of damage, right? But like in general, if you want to talk about power level, a common could be from like 1 to maybe like 3.5. Like a rare could be from like a 2 to maybe like a 4.5, right? So like in general, a rare will at least be like okay to like pretty good, right? Now there's a much bigger range for non-special double inscription. The reason why I titled that is because I've seen, you know, and everyone's seen them. Some people have gotten so lucky that not only did they get a special inscription, but then they actually got a second common inscription attached to that. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about anything that's a double, but not a double with a special in it, right? Those you could get two, really, like you get two barred ones, right? Or you can actually get, for example, like a forceful, where you're getting like 4% more skill damage boost, and like a robust, like a 3.5% health, right? Which would be really, really good. Like the only thing that could be better than that realistically that you could get will be a special, right? So there's a huge range for non-special doubles from 1 all the way to like 6, 6.5. I don't get too caught up in the numbers, but it just gives you an idea of the range there. And what you want to do, the current strategy, if you want to take advantage of this catch-up mechanism, is you first, if you have nothing there, you at least want a decent common inscription. Again, something that's like 3.5% health or like assertive 2% damage in the mass, something that's like decent with like at least like low triple stats, right? And then from there, you just hoard. You just hoard, and the only time you use any of your other resources is that you actually use it on a good, like a very good non-special double inscription or a special inscription, right? This will actually allow you to kind of bypass the middle where a lot of people are putting resources into stuff that they're essentially, there's going to be an expiration date on it, and then it'll allow you to kind of skip the expiration date, or at least invest in stuff where the expiration date is going to be really, really far off, or there is no expiration date, like a special inscription, right? Because you could convert it over with a conversion stone. It's just something that you're always going to use, right? So that's actually the way to take advantage of this current armament system. And I'm sure there's some people that have thought about that already. Just kind of want to put it out there, right? So that doesn't mean you just hoard right away, right? Because you need something in those slots. It's once you actually get your armament to like an okay place, it doesn't even have to be really good. It just has to be okay. You just hoard, and that's what actually be taking advantage of the catch-up mechanism for armaments. Now, if you watch all the way to the end, you haven't yet, please like and subscribe to the video. Again, thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you guys next time.